welcome. I am Katie Darrell, and today we are at home and social with the one, the only, the fantabulous George Thorogood. George,
Don't
how
stop
are
there.
you?
Keep going. I
I
like
know,
it.
right? What
keep
other
going.
adjectives can I use? I mean, rock star, extraordinaire, savant. Now, there's some other words I could use too, but those wouldn't be polite.
Just keep me in the conversation.
Oh, George, I mean, it is such a pleasure to talk to you. You truly are so talented. But, before we talk about your talents and we stroke your ego, let's talk about your product, right? We're pushing something because December 18th is the worldwide release of a new deluxe set. Tell me all about it.
I think you're talking about the full concert live in Boston. That's what you're talking about. Previously, a few years back, they did have a live in Boston CD, and they decided to Rounder Records and our management thought it'd be a good idea to put out the whole concert in its entirety. Well, I didn't exactly protest that idea.
More of George? Okay, twist my arm.
Well, I mean, it's flattering actually that after all these years of what we've been doing, Rounder's a big record company at this point, and they're not going to put out something they're not going to get their investment back. So there's someone must think there's still a demand for George Thorogood and Destroyers, which is pretty flattering. So we have them to thank and people in the media such as yourself.
Well, so this worldwide release, it's the Live in Boston 1982. Like you said, there's different songs on it than what was previously released a couple of years ago. So this one we will hear Bad to the Bone, right? Let me see. I've got a full listing, I think. Let's see. Bad to the Bone's going to be on this. One bourbon, one scotch, one beer.
They're on every record.
Who Do You Love is on this. I mean, these are the hits. This is the good stuff.
Well, that's what the people want to hear, Katie. I mean, you go to the gig and say, I did a show a few years back, and I think we were kind of in between albums, and I said something to the audience. I said, ladies and gentlemen, it's great to be here tonight, but I'm going to tell you right now, we're not going to do any new material. And everybody applauded. I said, great. Okay, you got me.
Just the hits. Now let's go back. All right. Let's time travel, if you will. All right. So it's 1982 when you guys originally recorded this. Leading up to this in 1981, this is when you were on tour with the Rolling Stones, when you had your 50-50 tour, which was 50 concerts in 50 days, right?
51, actually. We did a doubleheader in Baltimore and Washington, D.C. Played in Baltimore in the afternoon and D.C. at night.
So with 1981 being so full and fantastic, what made you guys in 1982, when you get to Boston, say, let's hit record and record this show specifically?
I myself wasn't very much involved with that. Most bands, from the day they start, if they have the equipment, record everything. They record every night they play, and they hold on to it for whatever reasons it might occur later. So that's what really, we didn't go into it intending to make a live record. We just played, and fortunately someone recorded it, as they did many of our shows. And people would say to me, would say, well, what was so special about that show? And I go, they're all special. You can't pick out one or the other. It's like saying, well, how can you say which one of your birthdays was more special than the other? The one
that had more cards that had cash in it, George, cash.
Okay, well, that's one way of looking at it. But at that time, we had done shows, of course, with the Rolling Stones, the Jay Giles Band, among others in the United States and Europe. And then we got hooked up with a major label, EMI America, and Ian Stewart, the piano player with the Rolling Stones, not only recorded with us, but was playing with us. He toured in Canada with us. So that was an extremely big time for us. It was like we were standing outside, and the Delaware Destroyers got invited to the big party. And that was cool.
That is so cool. So with this deluxe set, the worldwide release of Live in Boston 1982, for those of you joining us, we are at Home and Social talking to George Thorogood and the Destroyers. Got this
Delaware Destroyers.
I mean, kick-ass band, kick-ass, right? I mean, and you guys have just been killing it. One of the one description that I've read about you is that you are the Indiana Jones of rock and roll. I believe this was written in the liner notes. Can we expand on that? What does that mean to you?
Well, what it means is I spent a lot of time, Katie, in the early days of while I was learning the guitar, and even previous to that, I was researching record after record after record for obscure material, not necessarily just doing covers, as Joe Cocker and Linda Ronstadt do, and they're very successful doing that, and they're very talented, and they can do that. What I was doing was really digging deep into the earth, down into the well, and trying to find songs that were not in the social consciousness of the rock and roll world, such as Bourbon, Scotch, and Beer, I'll Change My Style, Ride on Josephine, Bottom of the Sea. I have a whole list of them. It Wasn't Me by Chuck Berry. And that's what I was doing in those days. So the first two records we did with Rounder were more or less a project that I had. I thought these were good songs, and they needed to be heard. And I said, I can't understand why John Hammond didn't do this song. I can't understand why Elvin Bishop didn't do this one, or the Rolling Stones didn't do this one. So that was my mission at that day, and that was my project. And obviously it was successful because the second album went gold. So there you have it. So there you are, Indiana Jones. I'll be the Delaware Jones. How's that?
Yeah. But I mean, really, let's dig into those influences, because I mean, you truly speak quite often about how important artists like Muddy Waters and Bo Diddley and Chuck Berry were to you. Bring me back to George, little kid George, sitting next to the record player, listening to this music. You know, tell me about the goosebump feelings and what got you really interested in picking up that guitar and making your own music?
Well, actually, it started like every other kid in the world. You know, when rock and roll hit in the 50s, you know, I was very young, but I did not know it was a new medium. I didn't understand that because I was too young to know that it was new. So when I heard the Everly Brothers and I heard Fats Domino and Elvis Presley, among others, I thought this was standard stuff. I didn't know it was a new thing hitting. Of course, I knew later, you know, like when the Beatles hit and the Stones and Dylan and all those people, I was a little older. But in that time, I just thought this was the natural thing. And isn't that the natural thing to want to be a rock and roll star? Isn't that the standard? You know, I said, well, if you can't hit a fastball or throw a fastball, you become a rock and roll star, you know, and that was second nature to me. That was me as a little kid.
And when you first started playing, you were doing solo and doing stuff by yourself. The band came second, correct?
Yeah. Well, prior to that, like any other kid in high school, I was sang with a few high school bands, very poorly, I may add. But everybody did that then. To everybody, it was a hobby. To me, I knew this was going to be my profession, and I was just took me a little while to figure out if I was just going to front a band like Eric Burden or Roger Daltrey, and I knew I couldn't do that because I can't sing like them, or was I going to front a band like the Rolling Stones? I said, I can never write songs like Mick Jagger. What are you going to do, George? My parents would say, what are you going to do? That guitar is sitting in the closet gathering dust. And I said, well, let me give that a shot. So when people like Can Heat and the Savoy Brown Boogie Band, 10 years after, and the early Jay Giles Band were making a lot of noise, Allman Brothers, Johnny Winter, Bonnie Raitt, people like that, I said, there's a market for this kind of thing. Maybe not a multi-billion-dollar market like with Cher or people like that. I said, but there is a market for it. It's called underground music. At least it was in those days. And I thought I had a shot at that. Once I started doing it, I got the attention with people, but more than one came up to me who were, you know, people like Robert Jr. Lockwood or Sonny Terry that urged me to get a band. They urged me to do that. So you get a bass player and a drummer. You're only going to take that acoustic thing so far. I said, man, there's only one John Hamm and one Taj Mahal. Those guys are monsters. Little Georgie has a long way to go to catch those cats. So that's what kind of pushed me into it. So that was my calling from day one. And when I picked up the electric guitar and Jeff started playing drums behind me, bang, I knew that was it.
Magic. Lessons. Did you take a lot of lessons as a kid, or was it just?
You know, everybody did. I had a kid in high school show me a few things, and he'd show me this note and that dun dun dun. I said, hey man, I don't want to hear that. I want to hear, how do you play Satisfaction? and how do you play Gloria? You know, I never got to that. I said, what the heck with you, man? I'm done with that. And besides, the band that I was with at that time needed a bass player, not another guitar player, which is okay because I didn't know how to play guitar. I didn't know how to play bass either. I still don't. But I figured I could be in the band.
Yeah.
And that was the big thing. I'm in the band. If they needed a tambourine player, I said, I play tambourine.
Kazoo. I'm the kazoo girl, right?
Well, that was the thing. In those days, you were a cool cat if you were in a band.
You mentioned the Rolling Stones. I mean, I feel like every question I've asked, you've somehow made a nod and a reference to the Stones. You love them.
Let me tell you something about my background with those people.
Mm-hmm.
There were the three dominant artists of my generation. Then were the Beatles, Bob Dylan, and the Rolling Stones. They were the big boys on the block. Arguably, they still are.
Yeah.
And when I looked at the cover of Rubber Soul and I listened to the Beatles, they represented freedom. Freedom. I looked at them, I said, they don't have to cut their hair. Gym teachers don't kick them out of class. They don't have to go in the army. They can do anything they want. And they're successful, they're good looking, I said, they have it all. And to me, as a young person, I said, they represent freedom. Yeah. Dylan, I listened to his music and it represented truth. His music hit you, bam, right like that, right in the head, bang. He spoke the truth. When Like a Rolling Stone came out, man, it was just like our heads spun. The Stones, on the other hand, when I looked at them, I said, they represent hope. Hope for a guy like me. Now, this is the pre-Satisfaction days when they were pretty much doing, like I did, obscure blues material with a couple of originals sprinkled in here and there. So I said, there's a chance for a guy like me. I thought they were really cool looking, but I also looked at them and I said, well, these cats ain't going to make it on their looks. Maybe Ricky Nelson will, but so I identified immediately. So that's what they represented to me, hope. I said, if I can get a guitar and a couple of cats and really grind out the blues, I might have a chance. I might have a chance. And that was the act that kind of steered me in that direction to begin with anyway.
So then in 1981, when you got to tour with the Rolling Stones, every night were you just like a kid in a candy store, totally psyched?
Kid in a candy store?
Or were you cool, man? I was
a kid in a candy factory. Okay. I mean, I could barely contain myself. I mean, you know, I'd gotten along in years at that time, and this was a long time coming, and I'd seen other acts working with the Stones, reggae bands and other things. I didn't understand the industry at all at those days. Big acts hire bands to sell a lot of records because they want to draw a lot of fans. Yeah. And my take on that was, yeah, but these bands don't play Bo Diddley and they don't do Chuck Berry. That's what I do. I'm doing this. I'm their success story. They wanted to teach young people like me, turn on to this music. And I kept bugging our agent so badly about it. And then he bugged Bill Graham about it. And they threw us on for one show. And like any rookie, we did good. So they hired us for a second show. Mm-hmm. Still, we did good. One show after another. It was never we signed up for a tour. That's not the way it works. Okay. If you can make it, you play the next day. If you don't, you're gone. There's too much at stake, Kate. There's 80,000 people out there, 80,000 to 100,000 people, and there's no room for mistakes. So as that went on, and the Rolling Stones was fantastic to us. I'm happy to say that I have the greatest rock and roll story of all time. Nobody can top it. Yeah. Nobody can top my rock and roll story. And here it is. I was lucky enough to meet the Rolling Stones before I saw them play. Not too many people can say that. And the very first thing one of the Rolling Stones said to me was, George, may I have your autograph? Top it. Try to top that. Charlie Watts walked up to me with our first record, very politely said, George, may I have your autograph? I got the pen. I went, it's George. Yeah, right. Hamana. I want any rock and roll person to try to top that.
All right. So in reverse.
What do you think?
Oh, I think it's amazing. Do you have their autograph though now?
I got Keith Richards to autograph my guitar. And one time during the tour, the Rolling Stones had merchandising. You have this scarf, that said Rolling Stones on it, and a tongue and the whole bit. Sure. So I snuck around and got all the Stones to autograph the scarf. And I wore it during the show. It was an outdoor gig.
Yeah.
And halfway through the show, I took it off and threw it into the crowd.
No!
So that means somebody picked up that thing and walked home and looked at it. And I did it on purpose. Because I wanted that to happen. So they just grabbed it and put it in their pocket or whatever. So I said, somebody went home and looked at that thing and said, oh my goodness. That was fun. That was a lot of fun.
All right, so that's a great rock and roll story. You know, Charlie Waters coming up to you first and asking for an autograph.
It was very polite, I may add. Very polite.
I would imagine so, right?
They all were. They were all polite.
Who, in the so many years of living the rock and roll dream, who have you gone up to and randomly said, "Can I have your autograph?" Do you do that? I mean, is that a thing? Is it not cool to do that?
Who do I do that?
Yeah.
Of course I do. Everybody. I ask everybody for an autograph. You ought to see my guitar. It's loaded. I get them to sign my guitar.
Right.
You know, of course I do that. I don't know when to get another chance. I got Steve Miller's autograph on my guitar. I got Jeff Beck's autograph on my guitar. You think I'm going to pass up a time something like that? Come on, man. You know, if you're not a fan, I was a fan at 15. I'm a fan now, and that's never going to leave me ever. So, and as time goes on, that expands. You know, I mean, I remember I was talking to somebody, and they were talking to me about Bo Diddley, and the woman had never seen Bo Diddley. She was a tour manager, and said we were talking about him, and then all of a sudden I saw him walk up to the side of the stage, and I started freaking out. I said, "There he is! It's Bo Diddley!" And then I remembered. I said, "George, you've known Bo Diddley for 20 years. He's autographed your guitar. He's been in your video, but still, the rush was there. And when that rush is gone, Katie, I'm gone."
All right. So how frequently, when you're out and about and just living life as George Thorogood, and you're at a restaurant or a bar pre-COVID, does someone spot you from across the bar and send you one bourbon, one scotch, and one beer?
Yeah,
does this happen a lot?
That usually happens when I'm on. Occasionally, it happens when we're on the bandstand. Not so much anymore. That does happen. It has happened. Not as often as you'd think.
That would be my go-to move. It's pretty cheesy, but I'd be like, I got to do it.
I politely decline.
I mean, let's be honest. It's bad advice. Mixing all three of those is going to bring you to a real bad place.
And the thing is, it says one. That's the key, one. And it doesn't say drink them all at one time either. So, the title can be deceiving.
With over 15 million albums sold in your career, that's astonishing. Looking back, and George, who started out, and just trying to gig and get out of your parents' house, where did you think it was really going to go? Were you dreaming as big as 15 million albums, or did you have your hopes set lower? How high were you?
I had my sights set high, but my sight was at I won't call it a lower level. It was an accurate target. That's what I should say. Yeah. And that was my sight. I said, I want to put a band together so we're good enough that we can open for Jay Giles, or we can be the backup band for Chuck Berry. That was a very reasonable dream. It wasn't even a dream. We could make that a reality. I said, if we can do a gig and be the opening band for Canned Heat or 10 Years After or something like that, we would fit right into that. That would be good. However, our first record came out, that blew that all to hell. It sold so many copies that Rounder couldn't even handle it. They went broke trying to make the records. They didn't have enough money to cover it. So we were never ready for that. I remember when Rounder made that first record, they wanted to do 5,000 copies. And I said, whoa, it's way too many. 2,500, that's our limit. You're never going to sell those records. So we didn't really think that it would get to that. I remember something that was the tail end of FM radio. And we got in on FM radio when it was the tail end of it, when it was just about over. However, as time went on, we got in on the infancy of MTV.
Yeah.
When that started. About 9 years from later, we got out on the infancy of classic rock radio. So our music and stuff was at the right time going. Then came the House of Blues rush when that thing happened. And we were on the inside track of that as we were doing Native American casinos. So right along the line, all those things added up. And of course, as the years went on, we got more and more fan following, which I never expected. I said, well, we'll get 100, 150 people in the place. That's okay. We'll do it. So when 1,500 showed up in a place that only held 200, I said, holy smokes, what the hell? How'd this happen? Remember something, we didn't even have an accountant. We had no tour manager, no agent, nothing. We had one microphone. We had one microphone, one car, a drum set that had one cymbal, and a tiny Princeton amp. And I said, man, we got to get organized here. This thing is just, us and Rounder were swamped. We really we had to catch our breath and say, gee, how do we handle this before it gets away from us? So that was pretty more of a shock than even a surprise. I thought, I think there's a market for what we do, but this, Charlie Watts asking for your autograph. I mean, I had two people in my life come up to me and say this to me. I said, hello. And they went, bad. One of them was Jeff Beck and the other was Bob Dylan. Now, if you had told me that was going to happen to me when I was 16 or 17, I said, you're out of your friggin' mind. And that has actually happened to me. So there you have it.
With over 8,000 live shows under your belt, COVID is definitely kicking everyone's butt and making everyone miss live music. What do you miss about live shows?
Well, I miss all of it. Everything that's connected with it, I miss. We finally got to a spot, like you said, we have a pretty good catalog that we can, rely on when we play live, that people pay money to see. The venues are fantastic now, a lot better than when we started. Everything about it is better. It's progressed. It's a multi-billion-dollar industry, the music industry now. It's not a little thing like it used to be. And it's much more organized now. I miss that. I don't want to sound, crude or anything, but that's how I make my money. That's my income.
Sure.
So, like I said, there's millions of people now that are unemployed because of the virus. I said, yeah, I'm one of them. So, we're all getting hit in the same direction. But, more than the money, I mean, that's what I do. I mean, let's put it this way. That's what I am, for better or for worse. It isn't what I do. This is, I remember ran into a guy I knew in high school, and we went to school together. And in 1981, we were driving to Philadelphia. This was in 81. And we were driving to Philadelphia for our first Stones gig. It was the first Stones gig or the second. And the guy pulled up, we were going real fast. He said, hey, George, how you doing? I said, hey, Mike. His name's Mike Jordan. I said, hey, Mike. And he said, hey, how's it going, man? And I said, we're going up to Philly to play with the Rolling Stones. And he went, right. And he just said it just like, of course. Sure. Well, I knew you in 11th grade. You're no different. That's it. See, so that was pretty cool.
You so many accomplishments and great stories. So one of the things that I was really impressed with is in 2018 you got you were given the BB King Award, which I imagine getting any award or trophy is really cool, right?
Oh yeah,
let alone
absolutely.
one with a name like BB King.
You can't do better than that. I'll tell you, and it was some great company along the way. Some of the other people, Charlie Musselwhite among others, who got that award, and. The big rush of it, I can't remember my speech. I was blabbering all over myself. Yeah. It was in the middle of the show. They had to stop the show. The best part about it was my daughter was there to see it. And that was it for me.
I mean, truly, listen, Dad's a rock star and now he's got a trophy to prove it. Well, I really appreciate the time that you've spent with me today. I want to make sure that everyone knows all the details. We have December 18th. It's the worldwide release of Live in Boston, 1982 vinyl. There's how many? I think there's 4 LP vinyls, 2 CDs. There's artwork. There's photos. There's liner notes. What am I missing?
Released on Keith Richards' birthday.
So
I was
perfect.
Born in a crossfire hurricane. That's it. You got it. No charge.
It was so nice meeting you, George. Truly. Stay safe, be well, and I hope we see you on the road real soon.
You do the same. Thank you.